Hey guys, Gemma from ASD Rocks. So I'm going to talk actually today about parents and friends, because I always have something to sort of talk about because so many people send so many messages. But after I did that video for the lady, I'm just going to say the lady, who was feeling ostracized by the other parents at school, and I really digressed. I didn't actually stay on that subject because we started talking about the issues with the actual school. But so many people started contacting me this week about, I guess how lonely they are feeling and how cut off. So I'm going to tell you my story. Now, a lot of other people have also contacted me saying, oh, this is as old as time, this is not a new thing. No, of course it's not a new thing, guys. You've got to remember, I've been doing this for, well, it'll be coming up to 19 years soon. How is that possible? So when I started to experience the isolation, what I now call, because everybody can relate, what I call lockdown, COVID lockdown. So I'll tell you the tale of, how it sort of started happening. And I just want to say, it wasn't necessarily my friend's fault, okay? We'll get into actual school later and the parents and that sort of thing. But because Beau was 16 months old when I had him at doctors, now you've got to remember, at that stage, other than the fact that, 18 years ago, we knew absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about autism. There were no TV programs other than Rain Man. Rain Man was out there, and Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis. But, still, there were no kids at school. There was just no one you knew that had autism. And so it was just impossible to sort of know what was going on. But if I had him at doctors by 16 months, we know that I'd had suspicions for quite some time that something wasn't quite right. And I'd already been through that whole process of, that fight between husband and wife of, yes, there's a problem, no, there's not a problem, denial, all that sort of stuff. So what triggered it was that I was holding a mother's group. Gosh, I had the best mother's group, guys. I have to say, even now, I miss those ladies. And I was a late arriver because we'd moved suburbs, and so I was placed into this new mother's group. Beau would have been probably at that stage, they were all sort of starting to sit up, I think, somewhere around, they were a couple of months old at least. There was, 4 to 6 months old. And he went through his first birthday with them. But I remember the trigger point that I remember is that I walked outside with 2 biscuits, one for undoubtedly the most beautiful girl that I was planning to have Beau marry, as you do, of the mother's group. And I said to her mum, I was holding this biscuit, and I was like, Beau, do you want a biscuit? Biscuit, Beau, biscuit. And then I turned around to Chloe's mum and I said, does Chloe want a biscuit? Now Chloe heard her name and snap, her head like shit. It shocked me. It, like, you don't realize the delay until it literally slaps you in the face. And we spend so much time in denial. So, because no one wants something to be wrong with their kid, and the only person that does want something, that really wants that diagnosis, wants an excuse for why it's been so bloody hard. Because in the end, no one wants or should want anyone to say that there is anything wrong with their kid. We want our kids to be normal. We don't want that diagnosis. We want to know that they're going to live a perfectly happy, healthy, happy. We just want them to be happy. Now, Bo is happy. He's perfectly happy. What are our ideas of what's happy and what are their ideas of what's happy? Again, different. So that frightened me. And that was when I made the appointment. And after that, I started noticing more and more and more differences. And one day, it was trying to think. Yeah, it was before. No, maybe not. It was after the diagnosis. It must have been after the diagnosis. He was diagnosed on my birthday. That was a fun day. And he was just under 2. And I went round to one of the mothers group's places, and they were all the mums and all the kids were holding hands and doing that ring around the rosy thing. And I couldn't get Bo to do it. You know, all of them were having so much fun and laughing at their parents falling over and holding hands. And they knew what to do too. They knew what to do. And I could not. And I remember that being the first day that I felt that isolation. Now, that wasn't them doing that to me, okay? It's got to be really clear. But I felt it didn't matter how accepting they were. We didn't fit in. We fit in fine when they were all little fat little blobs of flesh and bone. And, you know, Bo was the first one walking. And one of the kids wasn't even sort of, you know, Bo was crawling and one of the kids wasn't even sitting up. But then that kid who wasn't even sitting up was speaking sentences before anyone else. So, you know, this is why some pediatricians will have an issue with diagnosing before the age of 2. Because development at that age is just so incredibly varied. And Bo was well ahead of the mark when it came to crawling, when it came to walking, when it came to certain things. But looking back now, he never understood anything, not even his name. So I can understand how some people, some pediatricians do diagnose even younger than 2. After I left that mothers group, you know, I just said, I've got, like, I don't know, I made up an excuse. I said, I've got to go. It was so painful. It was probably the first inkling of the, oh my God, I'm getting a little emotional. It was probably the first inkling of the life that I was about to start. The fact that we would never fit in anywhere again. So while all the other kids went to, we have a thing called Gymboree here, something, you know, I don't know, like babies gym. They, you know, they've just got all this equipment and you take your kid around and do all that stuff. While they did all of that, we did speech therapy. while they had their play groups and their play dates, we did occupational therapy. And my friends, you know, like one of my friends even said to me, because I would, you know, once a fortnight, maybe once a month, I would leave Beau the afternoon with his dad to, when I say after, like after school or after preschool or after whatever it was, and I would go and be there with one of my friends, go hang out at her house. And she always used to say to me this, she'd be like, you know, you can bring the kids, because by that stage I'd had Finn. I was already pregnant with Finn when Beau was diagnosed. So, but she was like, you know, you can bring the kids. And I was like, she's like, I've got my own kids. Beau and her son were literally born, you know, a couple of months apart together. In the same building, like not like the same hospital, but we lived in the same building. And I can understand why she didn't understand why I didn't bring my kid. But the problem was that if I wanted to be there for any significant period of time, if I wanted to actually speak to her, have a glass of wine, if I wanted to relax and, you know, actually speak to an adult, I couldn't bring Beau, because he wouldn't just go off and play with the other kids, you know. And eventually, the more time that went in between visits, the further and further apart we grew. Now, don't get me wrong, guys, I could call any one of these women up and say, hey, you know, do you want to catch up? And they would say yes. In fact, there's one that I'm waiting on at the moment. But that's the thing, I don't think they're as keen anymore, because so much time has passed. You know, we get used to the circles of friends that we're used to, and we forget about those that, you know, are there all the time. When you have a best friend, and that best friend is there. I'm watching Finn at the moment. It's terrifying. And this is all before school even started. So then we had Southern Autistic School, and that was great, because the other parents kind of knew what was going on and what you were going through. But at the same time, each kid, as they say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So each kid had their own, you know, sort of differences. And we were so exhausted that, and plus, you know, I had Finn. So if I was dropping Beau off at Southern Autistic School, you know, I only had a few hours to go and do all the things that needed to be done. You know, it certainly wasn't Chardonnays at sort of lunchtime with the girls while the kids were at school. Yes, we knew what each other was going through, which is probably why we didn't talk so much. So then when Beau transferred over to mainstream school, he transferred late. He didn't go with all the other kids. He was still at Southern Autistic School. So he didn't go into what you either call prep or foundation or whatever you call the first year level at school, wherever you are in whatever country. So all of those groups had already been made. Most of them were in the same catchment area. So they all went to, you know, the same kinder, and they'd made friends at kinder, and we didn't do kinder. We couldn't do kinder. So I never made the friends there. And the school that we ended up going to wasn't necessarily in our catchment area. I had to find a place that that could work with me and Bo. It wasn't about what's in my area. It was about which one was right for him. And so I'd already missed, and they'd already formed these little groups, and I was on the outer. I missed out on that, and I tried. But, you know, it's funny. They talk about how kids with autism can't make friends and can't go up to groups and don't know how to sort of get into those groups. I tried. Mind you, I wasn't much good at it back at school either. So, I don't know, maybe it's, it's a genetic thing. But, it's not that I didn't try. But, Bo wasn't friends with any of those kids. So there was no reason for us to become friends. And then Finn, I guess a lot of people would say, well, you had Finn as well. So I suppose, you would have made friends then. But no, because Finn, when he went to school, because he and Bo were so close, and Finn knew how to play with Bo. No one else knew how to play with Bo, and Finn did. And so they just played together to the point where at one point they said to me, we need to split them up. Finn's not going to make any friends. And I fought that. And I said, no, he'll make his friends, and I knew that Bo would be moving on eventually. But I knew Finn was doing okay. I could see Finn was doing okay. And if he wanted to make friends, he absolutely would. He wasn't that kind of child that missed that, because he's now developed an incredible friendship circle. But again, none of those parents' friends, for some reason at the age of 14 and 15, none of those, even Finn's girlfriend's dad, when he drops her off, or picks her up, he just beeps. He doesn't come in. So it's a lonely life, guys, regardless of whether you're being shunned. I gotta say, I don't want this to go on for too long, because I always do, but I could go on for hours about this. I haven't even started talking about that whole persecution, feeling like you're judged, blah 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 thing. But I just want you all to know that yes, it's a tale as old as time, but it's not necessarily anyone's fault in this situation. And in a lot of ways, I really enjoyed lockdown. I really enjoyed it because I felt vindicated. I felt like finally some of you guys can't handle, seriously, you can't handle homeschooling. You can't handle having your kids home for more than a week. I've been doing this at that stage, for 15 years, right? Like, I've literally been 24 hours, 7 days a week doing programs, teaching from home, teaching Bo far more basics, like, harder stuff that he couldn't get. None of this, academics. But it is a very, very lonely life, which is why I'm here, and you guys can talk to me and we can be virtual friends. And I've made some amazing friends on here. I really have. I think some actual lifelong friends that I will have, and only we will know what we go through. And that's probably one of the most beautiful things, I think, that we may not be in the same country, we may not be in the same state, we may be, but there are some connections that I've made that are deeper and stronger than ones that I've ever had in the last 20 years. So love you guys, rock stars.